All right, let's kick off another deep dive. And this time, we're going to be heading back to the 90s, you know. The golden age of 16-bit gaming. We're diving into console wars, Sega, Nintendo, and the battle that defined a generation by Blake J. Harris.
Oh, yeah. This book, it's not just like a dry history book, you know?
Yep.
It's a wild ride through these boardroom battles, the marketing mayhem, and just the passion that fueled this console war.
You know what I really liked about this book? It's like we get the inside scoop. It's not just the what happened, it's the why.
Yeah.
And it really humanizes these companies.
Yeah, and you know what? What really makes this book special? Harris, he interviewed over 200 people. So you're getting these behind-the-scenes stories, all these personal accounts. You really get the full picture.
It's just like being a fly on the wall in those boardrooms.
Exactly.
Now, the book really centers around Tom Kalinske, a man who led Sega's charge against Nintendo, you know. Imagine you're this successful toy executive. You're known for reviving Barbie. Would you even consider jumping into video games?
I mean, that's exactly the dilemma Kalinske faced. You have to remember, he had witnessed the video game crash in the 80s. I mean, who would want to go through that again?
Yeah, it seemed like a risky move.
And Sega's president at the time, Hayao Nakayama, he was relentless in getting Kalinske to come over.
I know. Nakayama actually tracked him down on a family vacation in Hawaii.
Can you believe that?
Talk about dedication.
That just shows you how much Nakayama believed in Kalinske. You know, he wanted him to turn around Sega of America.
It's pretty amazing. And what's even more amazing is that Kalinske's wife, Karen, actually encouraged him to take the job. They were on a Hawaiian beach, and she basically told him, go conquer the world.
Wow. That's the kind of support you need to take a risk like that.
For sure. Now, let's talk about Nintendo. Talk about a classic story of innovation and domination.
They came out of nowhere, it seems like. I mean, they started making playing cards.
Yeah.
And somehow they became this global entertainment powerhouse.
And Hiroshi Yamauchi, Nintendo's president, I mean, he was a huge part of their success.
He was brilliant. He knew how to build a brand.
You know, I think they were really smart. They understood their target audience, kids and parents.
They appealed to the whole family.
Exactly.
Think about it. Mario, their quality control, that gold seal of approval.
Yeah. Nintendo approved.
All of that was strategic, and it made them the king of gaming.
But, you know, that control also led to some tension, right?
Yeah. Some companies like Tengen and EA, they felt like Nintendo was too controlling.
It was a clash of control versus creativity.
Yeah. Developers wanted more freedom, but Nintendo wanted to protect their brand.
It was a battle for the soul of the industry. And that's where Kalinske comes in. He knew that to beat Nintendo, he had to shake things up, appeal to a different audience.
We had to change the game.
Yeah.
And he realized Nintendo had a lock on the younger market, but there were all these teenagers, they wanted something different.
Something cooler.
Yeah, something with an attitude.
And that's where Sonic the Hedgehog comes in.
What a character.
His blue blur, he just changed everything.
It's amazing how they created him. They really did their research. They wanted to know exactly what teenagers wanted.
And they nailed it.
Sonic was fast, cool, and he had attitude.
The total opposite of Mario.
Exactly.
And at work, Sonic was a huge hit.
He became the face of Sega, their rebellious spirit.
In their marketing, it was just as disruptive.
Oh, yeah.
Genesis does what Nintendo. That was a direct shot at Nintendo.
They weren't messing around.
And they slashed prices, formed partnerships.
Smart moves.
And that Sega Scream campaign.
Yeah.
Pure genius.
Loud, brash, impossible to ignore.
Sega was in your face.
They knew how to win the console war. Be bold, take risks, connect with your audience.
And they did. By the early 90s, we have a real battle.
Nintendo versus Sega.
The king versus the upstart. I can't wait to see what happens next.
This is going to be good. It's crazy how this whole rivalry became bigger than just video games, like a cultural phenomenon.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, Sega was on a roll with Sonic.
Riding high.
But then Nintendo came out with the Super Nintendo.
That changed everything.
What a machine.
Technologically, it was incredible. Better graphics, better sound.
And all those amazing games. Super Mario World. Zelda.
Yeah, Nintendo was back in the game.
So how did Sega respond?
Well, they got even more aggressive.
They doubled down.
Exactly. They launched that Welcome to the Next Level campaign.
I remember those ads.
Highlighting the Genesis' power.
Yeah.
Showing off all those cutting-edge games.
And they still kept taking those jabs at Nintendo.
Oh, yeah. They knew it worked.
I loved those ads where they compared Sonic's speed to Mario.
Poor Mario.
He looked so slow.
Sega was speaking to those teenagers. The ones who wanted to rebel. Be different.
And it worked.
They kept stealing market share from Nintendo.
You know, the book also talks about Those crazy events Sega would put on, like the Sega World Tour?
Oh, yeah. That was insane.
It sounded like a rock concert.
They went all out, taking their games on the road.
Celebrities, gaming competitions.
They even had a blimp.
A blimp.
They wanted everyone to know. Sega was the cool alternative to Nintendo.
It was brilliant marketing.
Yeah.
So, Nintendo was on the ropes.
Well, not exactly. They were still a powerhouse. They had those loyal fans, the hit games.
But they weren't perfect.
No. Harris talks about how some of their policies started to backfire.
Really?
Yeah.
Correct.
Remember, a lot of those third-party developers, they wanted more creative freedom.
And a bigger piece of the pie.
Exactly. Nintendo's tight control was starting to feel stifling.
So they started looking at Sega.
As a more attractive option,
Interesting.
Sega was more relaxed about licensing. They embraced edgier content.
So they were winning over some of those developers.
They were.
This whole story, it gets even crazier when you consider what happened in the real world.
Yeah.
Like Nintendo buying the Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, that was a head-scratcher.
Why would a video game company buy a baseball team?
It's a strange story. Yamaduchi loved baseball.
Really?
Yeah, and he thought it would boost Nintendo's image in America.
I guess that makes sense.
But it backfired.
It did.
People were skeptical. They accused Yamochi of using Nintendo's money for his own interests.
It was a PR nightmare for them.
At the worst possible time.
So we have this console war, Nintendo buying a baseball team, and then this whole issue of video game violence explodes.
Things were getting out of control.
Video games on trial in Congress.
It was a big deal.
Senators were worried about the impact of violent games on kids.
They wanted answers.
So they called in Sega and Nintendo
to testify.
Wow. What happened?
Well, Nintendo took a cautious approach. Howard Lincoln, their chairman, he emphasized their commitment to responsible content.
Parental controls?
Yeah, all of that.
They wanted to reassure everyone?
Right. They even talked about censoring the blood in Mortal Kombat.
What about Sega?
They were more defiant.
Of course.
Bill White, their marketing head, he argued that Sega's games were for older teens and adults.
So the violence was justified.
That's what they were saying.
Right.
But then White pulled out this fake gun during the hearings.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading about that.
It was a disaster.
Yes.
He was trying to make a point about the absurdity of focusing on video game violence while ignoring real-world problems.
That came off as a publicity stunt.
It really hurt Sega's image.
So, both companies were trying to figure out how to deal with this.
It was a sensitive issue.
And it led to the creation of the ESRB.
The video game rating system we have today.
Those console wars, they had a huge impact on gaming.
They did?
They changed how we think about video games, their content, their place in our culture.
Sega's challenge to Nintendo, it forced the industry to grow up.
To face some tough questions.
About responsibility, marketing, the future of entertainment.
But you know, even though they were rivals,
their competition made gaming better.
It pushed them to innovate.
And it gave us so many great games.
So, who won this battle? Who came out on top?
Well, that's where things take another turn. A new challenger appears. A new player entered the game.
Sony.
Yeah.
The PlayStation. It just exploded. Everyone had one.
It was a game changer.
What happened to Sega?
It's tough to say for sure, but a lot of things contributed to their downfall.
Like what?
Well, there are a lot of conflicts between Sega of America and Sega of Japan.
Internal struggles.
Yeah. They couldn't agree on strategy or product development.
They lost their way.
Kinda. And they rushed a lot of their releases.
The 32X. The Sega CD.
Yeah. Trying to keep the Genesis alive.
But it just confused people.
It did.
Gamers want innovation. But they also want a smooth experience.
Exactly.
And I think Sega's biggest mistake was underestimating the third-party developers.
They forgot about the developers.
Yeah.
The ones who were frustrated with Nintendo. Sony saw an opportunity there.
So they swooped in.
They gave developers better deals, more creative control.
And it worked.
The PlayStation had all the best games.
And then there's CD-ROM technology.
That was huge.
It changed everything.
Bigger games, better graphics, more immersive experiences.
The PlayStation had it all.
Sleek design, CD-ROM, amazing games.
Sega tried to catch up with the Saturn.
It was too late.
Sony had won.
It's sad in a way. Sega was so innovative, they challenged the industry.
But they couldn't keep up.
But their legacy lives on.
Obviously.
Those console wars. Especially Sega's battle with Nintendo. They changed gaming forever.
They brought us so many great games.
And pushed the technology forward.
What about Tom Kalinske? What happened to him?
He left Sega in '96. He
Right.
went on to do other things. Educational software. online learning.
But he'll always be remembered for his time at Sega. He was a true innovator.
He was.
So, what are the big takeaways from all of this?
Well, I think the biggest one is know your audience.
Like Sega did with those teenagers.
Exactly.
They knew what those gamers wanted.
And they gave it to them.
Another one.
Embrace risk and innovation.
Sega wasn't afraid to try new things.
They were always pushing the boundaries.
But you have to be smart about it.
Yeah. Innovation for its own sake can lead to disaster.
And finally,
You have to adapt to change.
the gaming industry. It never stands still.
If you can't keep up, you're done.
Sega learned that the hard way.
They did.
But, you know,
The real winners were the gamers.
we got all those amazing games.
And memories.
It was a golden age of gaming.
It was.
And it's all thanks to that competition between Sega and Nintendo.
They pushed each other to be better.
So,
Yeah.
that's our deep dive into the console wars. What a story.
An epic battle.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Were you Team Sega or Team Nintendo?
Share your memories.
Let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, game on.